Welcome to Where the Music Never Dies, a space devoted to the stories, spirit, and legacy of my brother, Joel William Moss, lovingly known by many as Joe-Willy or Jolie or just plain Joel. For more than 15 years, podcasting has been my way of connecting with people through storytelling. This time, the storytelling is personal. I chose this format because I need to walk through my own grief journey. And I know that hearing the memories, reflections, and truths shared by those who knew my brother will help me piece together the fuller picture of his extraordinary life. As the host, I'm giving myself permission to dive deep, ask the questions that I never thought I would ask to fill in the gaps. Those personal stories that my guest has of my brother. Joel was never driven by fame, even though he worked alongside people who were household names. Some were local musicians and artists, other top 10 chart individuals. Rick Bolton describes himself in an interview as just a guy with a guitar. However, Joel described him as one of his talented friends who assisted other talented musicians develop and follow their dreams. Today, Rick will tell his Joel stories and help fill in the missing pieces I'm searching for. Joel's memory will shine bright through his eyes. So welcome, Rick. And it's been a couple of months since we've seen each other. And it was great having you and Sharon at the celebration of life. But what I want to know is, who is Joel to you?
Well, first of all, thank you very much for having me because it always does my heart good, and it brings me back. I think of Joel quite often, and it's through things like this that I remember all the wonderful times that I had with your brother. But Joel was a million and one things to me. He was I'll get to the important stuff, but he was, first of all, a close friend. One who I played golf with, one who I went bowling with. I was the best man at his wedding. There were 7 of us there that day. So I don't know. I got the good straw. I won the toss that day. So I was his best man. And Joel was someone who I connected with very early on in. Probably I stick my chest out, and I'm very proud to say I'm probably one of the first guys that Joel ran into when he came into Saratoga Springs.
Well, you mentioned a sport that he loved to hate, and that is golf.
Mm-hmm.
And I hear that he was very much like my father on the golf course, that when things didn't really go his way, he could get a little angry at the golf club and at the golf ball.
I missed that one ever so slightly.
You froze a little bit. So what I was saying is that
yeah,
he was much like my father on the golf course, that when things didn't go his way, he could take it out on his golf clubs and the golf ball. So what did you see?
I'd like to say that, what happens on the golf course stays on the golf course.
Okay.
But let me just put it this way. He was passionate about his golf. And we just had a whole lot of fun because, the course record was always intact after we left the course. The maintenance crew might have to work a little bit harder after we played 18 holes. But Joel was very, very passionate. And we had just so much fun.
So when he came to Saratoga in the beginning, he was sharing a lot of his time between Saratoga and New York City, where he was still doing a lot of Broadway recordings and things. Um, what was, where did you first meet him? I guess is what I want to like. Were you just walking down the street? Did somebody introduce you? Was it at Cafe Lena?
It was pretty close to Cafe Lena. I was playing a gig, and Joel was on his very first date with Terry Lynn, who was his partner in crime, his wife, for many, many years. But they were on their first date, and he was just actually coming from LA, where he had just started working with a guy by the name of Dan Hicks and his Hot Licks. You know, he was doing a recording session with him. And he walked into the club. Terry Lynn is my one of my wife's best friends. They're longtime buddies. So Terry Lynn dragged Joel to our gig, and he arriving, like I said, just from the Dan Hicks session, walked into a room with a three-piece doing a Dan Hicks and his Hot Licks number. And it was an immediate connection right there and then. And it was funny, you know, at the very beginning, not knowing him at all. He said, you know, I could record you. You know, we could do something with this and whatnot. And I've been playing 55, 60 years and whatnot, and you hear all sorts of things, you know. So I said, oh, that would be fun, you know, not knowing really who I was talking with, you know. Uh, uh, but you know, then through a little investigation and whatnot, and hearing tales, I realized who I was talking with, and the rest is basically history.
Well, he was a storyteller, and we all know that. He loved to share things that he had experienced along the way. And, you know, I knew my brother for 75 years, although probably the first couple of years I probably didn't know him real well because I was so much younger than him.
Yeah,
But my brother was very humble about what he did in his life and the people that he worked with. And when he would tell me about you and your lovely wife, Sharon, it was always like, I'm supposed to know who these people are. That's before I ever met you. It's like, well, these are performers. They're like up here. And you are in Saratoga Springs because you play all over, and so does she. But he didn't designate that, hey, I worked with Michael Jackson, you know, last week, and now I'm working with Rick Bolton this week. You were just, everybody was just musicians that he was working with. And it was his desire to, you know, give you the opportunity to be your best. So what was it like recording with him?
it was intimidating at first, you know, after I found out you know, who I was with. But you're absolutely right. You know, what he did was he treated everybody exactly the same. You know, because I'd seen him work with you know, stars and international stars and whatnot, and I was involved in 4 or 5 projects with him. We brought the local musicians in, and we did 3 or 4 CDs to benefit, you know, various organizations here in Saratoga, and so I was there, you know, for every recording, and through that process, saw the treatment that he gave every musician that walked through the door, and that was, you know, we're going to make you the best that you can be, and treated everybody with, I mean, the utmost of respect, and would take, you know, a lot of time, you know, of course, all us local people, you know, not being in this recording studio, you know, as much as the people that he was accustomed to working with. And his patience, his giving, his forgiveness was just incredible. He always did strive for perfection, though. He was very adamant about bringing the best that he could out of everyone, and believe me, he would.
I sat through a recording session he did with my son, and I couldn't believe what he did for my son. And when I say that, um, my son knew that he had a good voice. My son knows that he has perfect pitch. Um, but Joel didn't let him have an inflated head. He made sure you're going to work just as hard as anybody else because you're in this studio. And then when he pieced it all together, it was like, how did you learn this? Because Joel learned all this on his own. This was not what he went to school for. Um, and so I was always amazed. Like, how
Mhm.
did you know? How did you know that you needed a violin in the background? And how did you know that you needed some more percussion in a certain part?
Yeah.
And his comment would be, you just go for it. You just try. And if it doesn't work, you go on for something else. And he was always looking for that perfect outcome.
Well, he
Um,
did. It's very true. Exactly. He definitely had a gift, and he had the best ears, in the world. I mean, evident by the fact that, how many Grammys did he win? A funny story about his Grammys is I was at his house often, and he had his Grammys. They were on a shelf, somewhere, and he didn't look at them much. And I think there were things hanging from him and whatnot. And but the trophy he was proudest of was his bowling trophy that was on the top shelf over every other Grammy. So getting back to what you were saying about him is it was just something he knew. That's something he did. The accolades were a nice pat on the back, but it really wasn't what he was striving for. He was after perfection. He was after a connection with the person that he was working with, and with that person, he always, and I've never seen this fail. He was so enthusiastic about that person and what they were doing and whatnot, and he just knew how to get the best out of them, and he knew how they would sound best, and he just had that feel, and that's a gift, like a musician knows, what lyric to put in here and what lyric to put there. And Joel actually was a great lyricist and
yes,
composer. And we had written 4 or 5, 6, 7, 8 songs together, in I think 20 maybe years, 21, 22. I can't remember how long he lived in Saratoga. But he just, there was something special. And you knew it the second you talked with him, and the second you saw that gleam in his eye and the enthusiasm that he
well,
gave everybody. Jackson, the Rolling Pebbles,
yes,
which is, which was a kids group that was that they were part of uh, the Cafe Lena School of Music. Same enthusiasm.
yes, absolutely. Um, in 2004, my father passed away early in February that year. And when we were all together, um, he got a notice that he was expected to be at the Grammys. And he wanted my mother to go with him. And she just wasn't ready to leave home and go out there. And he kept saying, well, if I win, I will make sure that I mention your name. And my mother, was like, right, whatever, not that we didn't expect him to win, but he never talked about winning. This was like the first time. And his awards were being given I believe, like before the big show on TV, but it was televised. And he did win for his, um, oh, I can't even think of the gentleman's name now. Just went off for me. Um, but he won that year, and he forgot to mention my mother's name. And it became a joke ever since.
Mm.
Oh, you weren't proud enough of your Grammy that you, it was for Ray Charles. That's what it was.
Oh yeah, I remember.
And my mother teased him. On her deathbed, she
Oh,
teased and she said, I wasn't good enough for you to mention my name. And it was like, oh my God, Mom, I never expected to win. And his comment about winning a trophy was, now you have to be better the next time
mhm.
because people expect it of you.
Yeah.
And that was tough for him. You
Mm.
know, even though he went for perfection, um, it's hard to meet that perfection each and every time.
Yeah, I agree, but I think with Joel too, even with the Grammy and stuff, he didn't approach projects, thinking that, well, this one will get me a Grammy or that one will get me a Grammy. And all the time from the second that I met him, he never brought up the fact that he had won so many Grammys and he had worked with this person and that, whether it be David Byrne, whether it be Andy Williams, whether it be Maurice Chevalier, whether it be, I mean, there were just a long list. He would never, bring those people up out of the blue, unless the subject came up. And then when the subject came up, we were all ears because he would always give you a little inside
Right.
story,
Exactly.
stuff that you would not believe. Some we can talk about, some we can't, But that was his thing. He was never out for an award. He had, and we talked about awards and whatnot, and he had mixed feelings about awards, especially in art that is kind of subjective.
Right. Exactly. Um, I know that when he first came to Saratoga Springs, um, in addition to you being one of his first friends, um, Charlie was his buddy. And Charlie became a brother to me only because of every time I came up there, we were in Charlie's studio. And so, you
Oh
know,
yeah,
Charlie would, it's like, hey, you're my sister, whatever.
yeah.
Uh, but one of the things that I saw in that relationship and the relationship that he shared with me, with you, is that he could be friends with anyone. It wasn't necessarily about your background, your talent. It was about being friends with good people. And those are the people that came out for the celebration of life. And there were hundreds of people lining the street that day. Is there something in the water in Saratoga Springs that makes people so nice? I think you froze on me.
I think, we froze a little bit. I think I
Yeah,
got the gist of your question, though. I mean, Joel would, I mean, even when not in the studio, he would bring the best out of you. You would have conversations with Joel that you wouldn't have with anyone else. And Joel had just the widest variety of friends. Everybody, from the dishwasher in a restaurant to the hairdresser to the mayor to the physician to the local William Kennedy. I mean, it was the broadest range of friends. And for Joel, I think. It was just a goodness connection. If he saw goodness in you, and he connected with those people, that, first of all, that weren't malicious, that, but were kind of interesting. He was a big hugger. Joel would, I think that was his thing, between you and me. His hug, he had this special power. And when he hugged you, he could tell, just from the hug. He didn't have to say a word. But no, it's very true. I would say there were probably 400 to 500 people at his celebration, and like I say, they were completely all walks of life. I would say there were more people, more non-musicians than musicians, but there were just so many people, and I was kind of in charge of putting his the people that were going to perform together. I worked with Sarah Craig, and I can't tell you the number of emails and requests that I had for people who wanted to come and pay their tribute musically. You were there. It was just it was like nothing I've ever seen before, to tell you the truth.
Well, and it's interesting because when I decided I wanted to do this series of conversations, um, I got some pullback from the family. And number one, it was like, are you really ready to do this? But they weren't ready to hear all the stories. Um, and the promise I made was we will get through his celebration of life. We'll get through the holidays. But at some point, I need to do this for me. And if nobody else ever wants to listen to it, that will be their choice. But one of the things that my brother taught me from a very young age was not to wait for everybody to tell me it was okay to do something. That if I believed in something, I should do it.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember calling my brother Joel. I was in a unpleasant marriage. My first marriage just wasn't working out. And I called Joel and I said, how do I tell our parents I'm going to get divorced? Because that's what I have to do. And he goes, you just tell them. It's not their life, it's your life. He said, but before you tell them, I want you to make sure this is what you want. He said, because I've known you for 30 years and you always do what everybody else wants, not what you want. And he gave me the confidence that I could go on, I could move on. And ever since that day, whenever I come across something that I want to do this, but what's my husband going to think? What are my kids going to think? Are the neighbors going to say? And I hear his voice saying, you want to do it? Do it.
Yeah.
But do it authentically.
Yeah.
And that's why this is so important to me, because just hearing you talk about being best friends with him just makes me feel like there's so much hope and goodwill in people. And I've seen it from the first day I stepped inside Saratoga Springs, and I want to bring that goodness into the major cities because we really need it.
we're very lucky. We live in a little kind of a nice little bubble here, But but I will tell you one thing, there's a a huge gap right now with Joel's passing and whatnot. Just a funny little story, and you know this about Joel too. I mean, he always would get that little. You'd present something to him that was just so far fetched and so out of bounds. This goes back to your story about being yourself and telling it like this. But Joel, I don't know how many times I saw this look in his eye when he'd say, Joel, put this mask on or put this hat on, and come, dance on one foot. He'd get this funny little look in his eye and he'd go, that what the hell? He'd throw caution to the wind and he would go for it every single time. This happened on the golf course. This happened wherever we were out to dinner. It was just kind of the person that he was. He was very forthright. He spoke the truth to you when he was talking to you. He had a very diplomatic way of doing that. He always, though, went for the art, and he always wanted to draw the very best, knowing that, you telling your parents would make you a better person. That was always the advice. And every time I'd bring up a little bit of a problem, he always had the best advice. And before I forget about it, though, I mean, for your listeners and whatnot, they can see the celebration at Cafe Lena. And I'm sure you've talked about this before, but they can click and get on the Cafe Lena website, and they don't have to listen to our words. They can just see it and feel it, because it was pretty well captured. And I would encourage anybody that I know to go in and take a look. He every now and then I'll go in and look at this little segment because he breathes again. I'm thinking about him, so I'll go in and there he is.
Yes,
You know?
he is there, and
Yeah,
he's with me all the time.
yeah,
The other day, um, I got very angry at him, and so I'm going to share this. Yes, he's not here; he can't defend himself, but Joel always took care of the family. And when I say took care of the family, if you had a problem and you shared it with Joel, Joel would listen. If he had advice, he would give you the advice. If he had connections, he would, make those connections for you. Last June, our oldest brother started having health issues, and Joel just jumped right in, and he was there every day on the phone with our brother Gary. And he encouraged me to do the same thing. It was almost like he was prepping me to take over his spot,
mm,
because
yeah,
the day he passed away,
yeah,
uh, my brother Gary was, okay, sis, you know, I'll do as much as I can on my own, but you need to talk to me like Joel. And I said, I'll never talk to you like Joel because he was unique. I
yeah,
will talk to you like Karen, but he prepped me. It's not the path I wanted to take in my life,
yeah,
but I'm taking it because it's set before me. And for everyone who loved my brother and even learned to love to hate him at times, because he did sometimes strike up some pretty harsh conversations, especially when they were very personal to him.
yeah, yeah.
Uh, but he was honest.
He was
And
always honest. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
so, what is Cafe Lena like now for you when you go back? Um, because your buddy's not there.
Yeah, I mean, it's just the completely different, completely different feel. I've always loved Cafe Lena. I don't go back as far as Joel went back. He playing there, I think in the early '60s, as I recall, or something
Like,
like that. But I go way back and have seen it go through a lot of stuff. When Joel came to town and made that his second home, there was a ton of community, a ton of connection. I could always go in the back room, and shoot the breeze about, the Masters, or the person that he was recording now, or he had some ideas on he was the idea guy. He had more things that he wanted to give a shot to, And but anyway, you go in there and it was just not that it's not warm now. I would say it's very different, but there's just a piece missing. There's a huge piece missing out there. And so it's, I go into because I still work with Sarah, and I'm down there at least on a monthly basis, as I host the open mic over there. But it really, and I think everyone that works there, feels the exact same way. Sarah Craig, of course, the person that manages it and has really, between she and Joel, they were the heart and soul of that place, and brought it to what it is now. And what it is now is a place where they can get name. They always got name folk artists, but they were limited, the amount of money that they could take in, because it was all door money, and the performer was limited, to what he could sell in product and door money. Joel was instrumental in telecast, or televising everything,
Right.
and live feed. He was major on that. He was major, of course, on all the sound stuff. People from far and wide would come to Cafe Lena to record. Many of the artists that were there, through Joel's guidance and stuff, what they did was they would put out a live album. I'm going to do a live album, but I'm going to wait till I get to Cafe Lena, because I get to work with this guy, and it's not an exorbitant amount of money because he's back there and he's doing it. And Joel was never, well, maybe I can get some money for this or money. He was that was just so beside the point. It was, how can I make this person sound so good? And then he brought programs in, Chuck Lamb and jazz and gospel brunches, and I mean, it's just so all of that, it's kind of, it's just a huge gap. Like I say, he had that creative thing going, and to go back though to your, I will say one thing. First of all, when you were talking about your family and your brother, I do know that you guys were the absolute most important thing in the world to him. And when he spoke of you, his brother, his mother, his grandkids, and his daughter, I mean, there was just a thing about him, and he would drop everything. And one more little point, something I had thought of, how he always wanted to help and connect. I mentioned, I would mention something. I had to be careful, because I would mention something, oh, my back right in this area isn't, feeling so good. I would get a text, every 3 days, have you tried this chiropractor? He'd send me an article about, back pain for seniors. He would, and, I'm sure I'm not the only one. That's what he did. And he would always do it with a nice little humor jab, and I mean, it's just, I just, I miss him terribly, and I think about him every single day.
Well, I know he's watching down on all of us. I feel it.
Mhm.
I see it through my son, who has been finding more time now to do some more writing. He's preparing
Who,
to.
by the way, was amazing. It was seen.
Thank you. Yeah,
Yeah,
he's going to get that recorded in the spring. So
and he should.
we're we're looking forward to that. But again, Joel inspired him to do what he wanted to do. Um, and that's why he only does it on the sidelines, because my son decided that he wants to enjoy his music. And he knew if he did it on a daily basis, especially in today's market, he probably wouldn't be the happy guy that he is.
Your son is very, very, very smart. Yes, absolutely. I did it professionally for 15 or 20 years. And then I couldn't do it anymore because of health issues and whatnot, and found I enjoyed it so much more when I didn't have to depend on it.
It makes a difference. They say
Yeah.
when you do something that you love, it's not work.
It's,
But when it's work,
yeah,
sometimes you don't love it so much. And um, I do what I do because Joel taught me that it's okay. Go out and do it.
right.
So, so Rick, thank you for joining me. Please send my love to Sharon. Um, I think she's phenomenal. And the backdrop that we use, she created, and we are so blessed to be able to have that. Um, and if you're in Saratoga Springs, she performs quite a bit around the area. So look for her, and
You got sure, yeah.
we'll keep you posted.
Karen, it's always a pleasure, and it's so enjoyable to talk about my old friend, you know. And anytime you come into town, please look us up. You know, we love seeing you, and please say hello to your son. You know, he was very moving at Lena's and whatnot. But thank you. What a treat and what a great thing you're doing.
Thank you. You have a wonderful day now.
You too.
Bye bye.
Bye.